One of the all-time favorite foods for watching football is, of course, pizza. So I'm going to do my twists on pizza, that's plural. And I'm going to show you different ways to mix up ingredients, but also different ways to prepare and cook your pizzas so that you can have something creative and fun for your party. And you can see I've got a lot of ingredients here. You don't need all of these. After you watch the video, pick out the things that interest you. I'm going to start with the pizza crust, and this is a very traditional Italian style pizza crust. There's no sugar in it, there's no fat in it. So what I have is 2 cups of bread flour and 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour that I've sifted together, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, active dry yeast, do not use the instant. And then I've got 1 3/4 cups of warm water here. I'm going to start with less than that and see how it goes. You'll find that flour is not the same in every state, depends on how much humidity is in the air where you live. So here in Vegas, I find I have to add more water to doughs than I would if I were, say, baking with my sister in Wisconsin. So we're going to start with a little bit less than the full 1 3/4 cups. So I'm letting the yeast and the salt blend in with the flour just a little bit, and then I'm going to start adding my water. And I'm going to hold back a little bit here and see how it goes. Looks like I'm going to knead it all. That was a pun, I guess, knead. Alright, so I'm going to let this come together, and I'm going to let it knead in the stand mixer for 6 minutes, and then we'll come back and check what it looks like. It's been 6 minutes. I'm going to give this dough a check. Oh, beautiful. It's supple. It's soft. It's not stiff. And all I'm going to do is take this off of here. And I'm going to let it rise in the bowl. I'm going to give it a little drizzle of olive oil and then roll it and cover it with plastic. So just a little bit, we don't need a lot. And then I'm going to turn it over so it all gets coated. Make it into a nice little ball. And then I'm going to cover it with plastic and let it raise till it's about doubled, which, depending on the temperature and humidity of your kitchen, can take from a half hour to 45-50 minutes. The first filling I'm going to work on is going to be with fresh fennel. I took the fennel and I sliced it on the mandolin so it's fairly thin. And I'm going to go ahead, I've got 3 tablespoons of melted butter in there. And then to that, I'm going to add some sliced shallots. I slice those thinly as well. I've got about 1/2 cup. If you've never had fennel, when it's fresh and raw, it has a slight licoricey flavor, sweet, not too strong. When you cook it, that flavor mellows out and becomes even sweeter. So I'm going to let these steam for a bit in the butter, so I'm going to put a lid on it and let those go for about 5 minutes, and then I'll come back to them. At this point, I'm going to add a little bit of white wine and turn that up a little so that it can cook off. I'm also going to add a pinch of salt. The salt actually will make the fennel taste sweeter. Salt brings out sweetness, just like in baked goods. And a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. And now I'm just going to let them caramelize. So once the wine cooks off, I'm going to turn that heat down and just let them get soft and a little golden, and then we'll set those aside until it's time to assemble our pizzas. And here's the finished fennel with shallots and just a little bit of white wine in there. So those are ready to go. The sauce for the pizza is quite simple. I'm going to start with a little bit of olive oil. And I'm going to add a tablespoon of minced garlic. I am using the jarred just because it's very finely minced in here. And we're going to get this going very quickly because I don't want the garlic to burn. And into that I'm going to add a whole jar of passata, which is tomato puree. It's the freshest flavor you will get because it's not really cooked, it's just bottled. So we got our garlic, a little bit of olive oil, and our tomato puree. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of dried oregano. I don't like fresh oregano for this because it can really be strong, and this is not going to cook very long. And then I'm going to tear up some fresh basil into here. And this will cook down quite a bit. Oop, lost one there. Come here. Go ahead and mix that in. So this is a very fresh sauce. Fresh tomato taste, fresh basil. And then all I'm going to add is just a pinch of salt. And I'm going to let this simmer away until it gets thicker because I want it to be spreadable rather than pourable onto my pizzas. So that's how easy that sauce is. I've got all kinds of pans here because I'm going to make several kinds of pizza. I've got my cast iron pan here, and that's going to make a thick crust pizza, not a Chicago deep dish, just a thick soft crust. I've got my pizza stone. Now if you don't have a pizza stone, you can do it on a pizza pan as well. It'll work. And then I've got some more interesting things. I use this pan normally to make large brownies, so I can make brownie sundaes because I flip them out and then they look like that. I'm going to use the back of this pan to make some small pizzas. And then I've got my medium-sized muffin tin, and I'm going to use the back of that as well to make some pizza cups. So we're going to get started with the cast iron skillet and the thick crust pizza. Got the second pizza rolled out. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is for family and friends. I'm going to build it right on my pizza peel, just like you see it at the pizza restaurants. Now, if you don't have one of these, you can build this right on the pizza pan. And this recipe for dough will make 2 of the thick crust cast iron skillet pizzas or 3 thin crust pizzas about the size of a regular pizza pan. I used about half the dough to make that thick crust cast iron pizza, and then I used about a half of what was left, or a quarter of the dough, to make the thin crust pizza, which left us with 1/4 of the dough, which I've divided again, and I'm going to make not quite mini pizzas, but they're small. on brush, just a little oil onto the back of these pans because I don't want the crust to stick. I'm going to use my biscuit cutter, and I've rolled this dough pretty thin, and I'm just going to stretch this over the pan just to make a little round. It should go over the edge just a bit. It's going to be fairly thin, but it'll probably shrink up a bit too as it bakes. So I think we can get 3 or 4 out of this dough. You might wonder why I'm not doing them the regular way in the pan, because the dough puffs up too much in the middle and then there's no place to put the filling. So I'm going to put these into the oven. I've already got my oven preheated to 450 degrees. These will only take a few minutes because I'm just going to par bake them and then fill them and then bake them again. While those small pizza crusts are baking, I'm going to take the last of my dough and I'm going to work in the scraps. I don't want to waste. I never like to waste. And now it's time to make pizza cups. So we're going to use a muffin pan. Now you could make these even smaller if you used a mini muffin pan, but I'm going to go ahead with this. So I'm going to roll out the dough and be right back. I've got this dough rolled out nice and thin as well. I'm going to use the same size cutter because I'm looking to make a cup, so a little bit deeper than the small pizzas that we did. And again, just a little bit of olive oil, keep it from sticking, and stretch it as far down as you can get it. Make sure you don't get any holes in there because then you're going to have pizza sauce and other stuff leaking out. So that looks very pretty. We can probably get about 5 out of here maybe. I'm going to continue doing these and I'm going to go check on those small pizza crusts. The small pizzas are out of the oven. It only took 5 minutes. They're still soft. I let them cool for just a minute and I flipped them off and then I put them into the pan the right way. And I'm just going to press them down a little, bottom of a measuring cup, or in this case my bowl for the olive oil, just to give them a little divot in the middle. So there's a little lip on them and they will hold the toppings better. I'm going to set those aside, and here's our pizza cups. I've got those ready to go. So the leftover dough made 6. So this is about 1/8 of the dough. So figure that out. 6 times 8. This would make about 45 to 48 pizza cups, or about 32 mini pizzas, or 3 12-inch or so thin crust pizzas, or 2 large thick crust pizzas. Now these are going to go into that same oven for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to get ready to put it all together. I'm going to start with the thick crust pizza. This has been resting about 15 minutes or so, and I'm just giving it a few divots here, pushing it up the sides of the pan a little. I'm going to actually par cook this a bit so that when the pizza comes out, the crust is done and the toppings are done. I don't want raw crust. I don't want burnt toppings. So I'm just going to put this in the oven for about 3 to 4 minutes. The pizza cups are out of the oven, and I did the same. I let them cool for a sec, flipped them upside down, and now I'm going to push them in this case with the bottom of a small juice glass. You can see it's still soft. I want to get them down in there so I can fill them up with deliciousness. Alright, and you gotta be careful because if you push too hard you will tear the sides of the cup. The first pizza I'm going to assemble is the thick crust. It takes the longest to cook. You can see that the sauce has thickened up nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and give us some sauce on there. I don't like it super saucy, nor does anyone in my family, because we want a balance between all the ingredients. But I'm going to try and get this pretty much right up to the edges. We've got just a little lip there. It'll keep everything from dripping out. And I'm wearing the mitt because the pan is still hot. This is going to be a meat lover's pizza. So I've got brown Italian sausage. I use the sweet. You can use the mild. You can use the hot. Or you could substitute ground beef if you don't like pork products. You can kind of change up the ingredients on these. You could include ham in this or salami. You could skip the pork and beef products altogether. Use some leftover chicken, shred it up, toss it with a little barbecue sauce or a little buffalo wing sauce, and then you could have a chicken barbecue pizza. All right, we've got whole slices of pepperoni. Like I said, this is going to be a meat lover's. It's going to be loaded, but this thick crust can carry it. So we're going to get plenty of meat on here. A little bit more. And then we've got some bacon. I did fry it crisp, but not completely crispy because it is going to bake more in the oven. So we'll sprinkle a little of that on there. Spread it out a bit. This one is definitely for my husband and my son. Now, we've got some ricotta. If you've never put ricotta on pizza, it's wonderful. You just put it on in little dollops, and it'll melt out into this little cheesy puddle of goodness. So I'm just going to put some dollops on. I'm not covering this pizza with the ricotta. And maybe a couple in the middle. Oops, that's all right. One more. Okay. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with some Parmesan as well. Each of these pizzas I'm doing a different combination of seasonings, of different kinds of cheeses. You don't need a ton of mozzarella on here because you've got the ricotta as well. And then I'm going to do it pizzeria style with just a little sprinkle of oregano on there. This is dried oregano, and I'm crushing it up with my fingers to release all the oils. So this is going to go back into the oven, 450 degrees. It does take quite a bit of time compared to the rest of the pizzas. That's why I did it first. And then we'll go on to the next one. The next pizza I'm going to assemble is my sausage and peppers. So I am taking my flavors from that sandwich, which is typically Italian sausage, grilled bell peppers and onions. Sometimes people will put a little garlic in there, and then top it with cheese. So I just put one good scoop on here, and often the sandwich is as well topped with some marinara. So that's how it's easy to turn that sandwich into a delicious pizza. So, got some of the same Italian sausage. Now, if you were just making this pizza, you could actually use whole sausages, cook them, don't take them out of the casings, and then just slice them up on here. So there's a lot of ways you can treat these pizzas. But we're going to give ourselves a good amount of sausage. Might as well use it up. Just spread it out. Okay, and then I've got the bell peppers. I sauteed them so they're soft, but they're not mushy. This pizza won't be in the oven that long because it is thin crust, so they will still have a little bit of texture to them. And then we've got our caramelized onions. And then traditional, at least when I make this sandwich at home, I use provolone. And like I said, I'm using the picante provolone, which has been aged a little. I had the deli slice it fairly thin, because I am going to basically cover the top of this pizza with this beautiful cheese. So I'm just going to cover it up. One more piece, we'll tear it up a bit to get it to fit. And now this is going into the oven as well. One of the reasons I made this ahead of time, the crust, and let it sit out a bit, it dried out just a little bit. It'll be easier to slide off of the peel onto the pizza stone. Now for the pizza cups. These are for my grandson, so I'm going to make them very simple. Pepperoni and cheese. So I'm putting a little bit of sauce into each. This one's trying to jump ship. And I'm going to take my little brush from earlier and just spread that out. A bit more here. And then I'm going to take the pepperoni that I cut. I've got the pepperoni and I cut the slices into quarters so they can go in here and be a nice bite and not to take a huge piece of pepperoni into your mouth at once. And I'm going to put about 5 or 6 quarters into each of these little cups. A little bit more. And then I'm going to give them a little bit of the mozzarella. Like I said, for my grandson, traditional. Not going too heavy because I'm actually going to do a layering thing here. Okay, I'm going to put a couple more slices of pepperoni on each one, just so it can kind of peek through the cheese. All right, need a little bit more. Just tear up some of these. Okay, and then I'm going to put some shaved Parmesan on top of this as well. And these are going to go into the oven. These will not take long at all because the little cups are par-baked. Finally, our small pizzas. I'm going to make 2 different kinds. Now, if I were doing this for a party, I would probably only make the small pizzas, so I would have obviously more than only 2 of each kind. Give them just a little bit of sauce. And I'm going to spread that out. Okay, the first one is going to have our caramelized fennel and shallot mixture. Now, if I would have had a little more sausage, you could put sausage with this as well because the prominent flavor in Italian sausage is fennel. But I'm just doing these as is because I want a vegetarian option. Okay. And this one is going to get the shaved parm. And then these 2 are going to be strictly veggie. I've got some mushrooms. got some raw bell pepper, so this will stay a little crisp. So the other 3 pizzas are already in my 2 ovens, and this is the last one. I'm going to give this a little bit of the caramelized onion. Oops, that's the wrong one. There's my caramelized onion. And a little bit of black olive. And these are going to get some mozzarella. And some parm. And these truly are the vegetarian option. Now I said the one with the fennel could also be a vegetarian option, but I actually am going to put some prosciutto on there at the end. So they won't be vegetarian, but you could just leave that out and it'd be a wonderful vegetarian option. Here's our first pizza out of the oven. It is the sausage and peppers pizza. And there we have it, pizza 4 ways. From left to right, we've got our thin crust sausage and peppers pizza, our thick crust meat lovers pizza with ricotta, and then we have in the front our pepperoni and cheese pizza cups, and in the back 2 kinds of small pizzas. The one on the left is the all vegetarian, and the one on the right is the caramelized fennel shallot pizza with prosciutto and a few toasted walnuts for some crunch. Enjoy!